The union members only, not...
I am a member of the union.
Geez, my grandmother was too about that period.
It started out as an argument over an extra inch on a shearer's comb.
No, you're not. I'm going to get past me, that's okay.
Now it's turned into the kind of violence you see in those movies about union battles on the waterfront. These are shearers, not Hollywood actors. And out here in the Australian bush right now, people are really getting hurt.
I've been bashed 4 times, kicked on the ground, lay the boots into you. They've threatened to kill me.
He's the one that provoked the trouble with his thugs thumping our blokes.
Out on the moor, the old shearer stands, grasping the shears in the slim bony hand.
As the song says, click go the shears. But that was back in the days of hand shears. Then along came mechanical shears. But things changed slowly in the bush. Those mechanical shears have remained much the same for over 40 years, until men like Bob White began taking off more wool with wider combs. And this is what's got Bob White into so much trouble. This is the wide comb. Out here in sheep country, if you shear with one of these, you're a marked man. And this is the standard narrow comb that the union says everyone must use. The difference? Just 22 millimetres, about an inch. Not much to you and me, but enough to plunge an industry into turmoil and to set shearer against shearer.
Wide combs are legal, why can't you use them? No one should tell you what tools you use in your trade.
Bob White's now one of a growing number of shearers using wide combs, and it's brought him into a head-on clash with the Australian Workers' Union.
Bob White is an industrial criminal.
As union organiser Mike O'Shea sees it, Bob White is one of those stirrers who began using wide combs long before a court ever made them legal.
So Bob White, all he's done is stirred a lot of trouble in the industry.
And even more infuriating to the union is that when it called a strike in protest against the court ruling on wide combs, Bob White kept on shearing.
I just believe in wide combs, and I've used them for 10 years, and I can't see any reason why I should go back to narrow combs. I've had the opportunity for ages now to come forth with evidence against wide combs in the Arbitration Commission, and just because I gave evidence for the Commissioner, the union have really got onto me.
So what's the problem if some men want to use a wider comb? Plenty, according to these union shearers. They're men who can hold their own in any shed, but they won't have a bar of the wide combs.
Well, there's quite a few examples, but one that sticks in my mind is mowing your own lawn at home. You've got a normal lawn mower, then somebody produces one much wider, and the grass is harder and there's more effort into pushing it. And you'll do more damage, especially if there's a flower garden, because you're not watching everything, and this is much harder to control.
Can you imagine the extra weight that's on the front of the handpiece for a start, just the extra steel in that comb?
But why does 1 inch, and that's all it is, 1 inch, make it so much harder?
1 1/4 inches in this case. It's much wider, it's much heavier. Being heavier, it makes it harder to control, and control is very important when you're endeavouring to shear a sheep to a grazier's satisfaction. So I can't see how we can possibly be expected to shear a sheep equally as well or better, as Mr. Robert White claims, using that wider comb compared to this narrow comb that we now use.
I shear approximately 40 sheep a day more with the wide combs.
And that's a lot more money.
Well, it's over $36 a day more with the wide combs.
I have used that type of comb in merino sheep in New Zealand, and I hadn't finished my second sheep by the time my arm was swelled up, the nerves had gone in it, and I had to consider and really slow down just to get the sheep finished.
I don't know where they could think that argument up, because I've never been to the doctor with a crook wrist, crook elbow, and I've never seen a shearer with a bunged up wrist from pushing wide combs.
Is it pre-meeting or not? What, that bloody ticket's no good, mate.
That's no good, it's in balance.
2 years old. 2 years old.
It's a union meeting, that's what it is.
So the bush is up in arms over wide combs.
Bloody Robert White man too, I know that, but you've got a bloody ticket. You're entitled to it.
This is the ladies' lounge at the Wagga Leagues Club. and the Widecombe men want to put their case to a union meeting. But some don't even get a foot in the door.
He don't come in. He's a scab, he's on the list of the scab and he don't come in. It doesn't matter what you got, you don't come in.
Why am I black then?
That's right, you got the message right.
Why am I
Because you're a
black
scab,
then?
was that any good? Is that helpful?
Why am I black then?
Because you're a scab, was that any good?
I'm not a scab.
He's got a ticket, and I reckon if he gets a ticket, he gets to go in.
Cox.
The union member they won't let into the meeting is Frank Cox. He's another leader of the Widecombe push. He also organised a public meeting that called for an end to the strike.
Now go.
Union members only.
I am a member of the...
Paul Wollaston is one of Bob White's shearers. He's come a long way to vote at the meeting, but the union says he's unfinancial and a scab. And that's when those deep-seated hatreds boil over.
Remove this boy! Remove him, fellas! Put him out! Put him out!
Now, our union has never condoned violence. Never.
There's no damage done.
It's not the first time that Bob White's men have found themselves in a fight over Widecombe. And Paul Wollaston knows it's unlikely to be the last.
Did you expect that this might happen?
I don't think it'd be that bad, no.
How many people punched you?
Well, I don't know. I just went down and they were putting food and I tried to cover my head up as best I could.
Did they say why they did it?
Because I'm scared.
Do you, as a union leader, condone those sort of attacks?
I never condone any sort of attacks, any sort of violent attacks.
Would you stop your men from attacking Bob White?
Would I? I'd seal them onto him.
You'd tell them to have a go at him?
If he started provoking them, yes, as he always does.
If he was on the job shearing with Widecombes?
Wherever he was. If he provoked them, yes.
That could lead to violence.
It could, couldn't it?
People could get hurt.
Well, what about Bob White? Has he been sealing his men onto ours when they've been in ones and twos? Of course he has.
The Widecombe dispute has spread through wool country like a bushfire, leaving its own trail of trouble in little places city folk have never heard of. Towns like Lyndhurst, Mandurama and Eromanga.
As we pulled up, there was about 9 or 10 blokes came out, never said nothing to us, and just straight into us and bashed us. Plus my wife as well.
No warning?
No warning, not a word spoken, just straight into us.
We didn't do much, we just come fisticuffs with them and she's pretty even, but we're too good for this, that's the trouble. Like straight out honest men is better than scabs any day. 5 honest men will beat 5 scabs.
Eromanga, in the far southwest of Queensland. The population, 15. It's usually a quiet place, that is, until Bob White and his team drove into town to get some petrol. That's the day when shearers stopped just talking about Widecombes and started using their fists.
One of the Narracombe fellas took an almighty roundhouse swing at White.
There's only one policeman in Eromanga, Constable Dan Hoadley. He could see trouble brewing and was right on the spot when Bob White was punched.
How hard was that punch? Well, if it was me, it would have lifted my head off my shoulders, but it was pretty hard.
Tim Tierney was also there that day. He's a staunch union man and not the one to walk away from a stoush.
Did you hit him? Did you hit Bob White?
Once, I think.
Once or twice?
Yeah.
You think he got what he deserved?
I reckon he should have got more.
What about Mrs. White? What happened to her? Well, she got smack in the mouth for her trouble too.
She got hit by one of the shearers?
That's right.
The big fat cook fellow that was up there, he was about 15 stone, he lined me up and looked me in the eye and he said, I'll give you one for good measure.
And did he?
He did.
You were hit?
I was hit well and truly.
She should have stayed here on the brand instead of stepping in. Like, she must expect the back end that she steps in, mustn't she? Like, you don't know really who you're hitting, do you?
I mean, but someone hit Mrs. White.
Probably a backhander by mistake.
Was no mistake. The chap that actually hit me lined me up and looked me in the eye. I could recognise him anywhere I ever saw him.
So it wasn't just something in the heat of the moment?
No, he'd said to me before he did it, what he was going to do. I'll give you one for good measure.
But why does the union or its members have to use violence to settle its dispute?
We don't use violence.
You have used violence.
When?
It's happened to Bob White.
It's happened to plenty of blokes. I've seen blokes belted over the head in a 45 strike with bloody rifle barrels and God knows what.
Mike, are you saying that's just natural?
Yes, it's a thing that happens.
I said to one of the shearers that he could have killed this chap. He said the bastard deserved to die. I said, well, he's a human being. And he said, he's not a human being, he's a scab.
So, just one more inch of steel on a shearer's comb pits worker against worker in a strike that leaves thousands of sheep unshorn.
It's only a tip of the iceberg as far as the wide comb issue is concerned.
And that, according to Mike O'Shea, is what people don't understand. That extra inch could undo all that the union has fought for nearly 100 years.
In Western Australia, they started off with pull combs. The standard comb just pulled out. And look what followed it. The wider combs came. Next thing, we had the massive influx of New Zealand shearers. All our award conditions were broken down. The rural workers' accommodation has gone by the board. And we know the same thing would happen in the eastern states should the wide comb be introduced.
But wide comb or no wide comb, scab or no scab, you wonder if any issue can be so important that even women and children get caught up in it.
Juanita personally has come into contact with them on the telephone.
I picked up the phone and said, Juanita White, and then the man just said, we're going to get your dad. And he hung up.
We're going to get your dad. Is that what he said? Exactly
Yeah.
that? What did you think of that?
Not very nice.
Did that scare you?
Yes.
I am scared of the union. I am scared what they could do to the property my father manages. I am scared what they could do to the wool and the wheat.
But it's not just rebels like Bob White who are prepared to stand up to the union.
He talks quite brilliantly.
This is a union shearer who won't use wide combs while his union bans them. Nor will he break the strike, but he is prepared to tell this public meeting what he's heard inside the union.
In that meeting, this official deliberately said, get out and provoke, get out and break limbs, get out and destroy property. We're going to show these bastards that we mean action. He was provoking violence.
So, is there any hope of reconciliation? 60 Minutes took Bob White to Dubbo in the slim hope that someone here would be prepared to talk to him. The union's answer, a very firm no.
I don't want to talk to him. No way do I want to talk to the man.
You won't even discuss it with him?
Of course I won't discuss it with him. I've discussed it with Bob White enough. And as I stated earlier, he's an industrial criminal.
But how can rational men who lead a union, settle a dispute when they will even refuse to discuss the matter?
I refuse to talk to Bob White. I refuse to be associated with him. So leave it at that.
And not only no talking, but a warning to 60 Minutes as well. Get Bob White out of town before he gets hurt. So it's with police protection that White is driven to Dubbo Airport. In the bush, there's an old saying that more sheep get shorn in pubs than out in the sheds. But right now in the pubs, the word isn't all that good.
They've got to be beat. They've got to be beat. Nobody likes a scab.
There'll be more violence.
Well, there's got to be a lot more violence, yes, definitely.
Do you think Bob White is in danger of his life?
I think he is. I think he is.
My wife's people come from here. My people come from here. My children go to school here. We haven't got to hide in behind trees, in caravans. Now, this is supposed to be a free country. We want to live here. We own this place. So why shouldn't we be allowed to live here?
So you don't want to back down? You're not telling Bob to give it up?
No, why should he? We live here, we're part of Australia, we are Australians. Why give up what he believes in?
Maybe for your own safety.
Well, if it means this, well, then Australia should know about it.
At its worst, what do you think could happen to you?
Well, the worst thing that could happen would be end up in the coffin.